Good evening, everybody. I have read your practicum logs and your reflective exercise and posted feedback in the associated rubrics. I want to remind you that your type-on feedback for your practicum logs, you're going to have a grade in the gradebook in Blackboard, but the detailed feedback is going to be in Typhon. So make sure you open up where you've submitted your practicum log and read the feedback that is there. The biggest issue I noticed with the Typhon logs were, one, want to make sure your time logs are correct. All of your time should be in the shift total column. You can further subdivide it if you need to into other subcategories. But before you graduate in 626, we're going to go through that shift total column and make sure that you have at least 200 hours. So that's going to be where you're going to make sure that you put in the roll up of your time. Kind of think about it as the hours that you get on your paycheck. That's where everything rolls up, and then those subdivided sections of goals and objectives and research and meetings, all of that would be like a different cost center where you'd subdivide your time. Just make sure that you have gotten feedback. If you've gotten feedback about your time logs, all of those need to be corrected prior to you submitting your second Typhon log. So go in and read that feedback, touch base with questions. Your reflective exercise feedback is in the rubric in the assignment log, in the assignment gradebook, so you can find that there. The Typhon logs, the only thing I want to continue to encourage you to do is in the supportive narrative section, I want you to remember to include personal reflections, self-reflections. This is the kind of where the rubber hits the road. This is where you will really process what you're experiencing in the practicum setting. Think about what you're experiencing working with your preceptor and how it's meaningful for you in your practice. These are the pearls of wisdom, the insights that you get from observing, the things that you kind of mentally think, wow, I didn't know that, or this is a really cool experience, or I wouldn't do that if I were them. All of those, the positive, the negatives, the confusing thoughts, this is where you're internalizing those experiences. And we know that through self-reflection, you're going to retain that information. Those are the things that you're going to remember. So I want you to include those adequately in the supportive narrative section of your practicum logs. So be mindful of that important step, especially if you've been given feedback to kind of bolster that area. The reflective exercise was all about conflict, and I was so interested to see the huge variety of conflicts that you all are experiencing or have experienced in your professional setting. So many great examples of excellent leadership abilities, either your own or those that were role modeled for you. There were a few examples of a hot mess where people were really struggling and really didn't do a very good job at all of managing conflict effectively and really negatively impacting patient outcomes. So it was really interesting for me to read that. Your classmate Michelle did a really good job of giving this a biblical perspective. So often we are in conflict with our fellow man, we're in conflict with our colleagues and our peers. Michelle wrote that we are reminded in this week's lesson that our Lord will always be there and we are never alone. Also, we can learn from the Bible that we sometimes need a partner or a team to lean on. Our Lord makes multiple references to how we can be stronger by having a partner or a team. In the very initial passage of the Bible, when God was creating the earth and man, He intended for having a partner or a team to help, is very apparent. In Genesis 2:18, the verse says, "It is not good that the man should be alone. I will make a helper fit for him." And Michelle is spot on correct. God blessed us not only with our biblical partners, with our spouses or our significant others, but also fellow man, our peers. How we treat our peers, our colleagues, our patients, our family, whomever we're in conflict, really should reflect God's intention that these people in our life, they're gifts and we need to treasure them even in conflict, even when we have had enough and everybody needs to go to a timeout chair. We've got to be good stewards of those gifts. So appreciate Michelle's perspective in that. Shout out to Joey, your other classmate, who managed to use level 1, level 2, and level 3 headings in this assignment. Kudos. Almost got a little weepy seeing those level 3 headings, and they were used correctly, which is really cool. And to Brian, your other classmate who wins the award for giving me nightmares probably for the next month. He gave an example, a clinical example of someone who had brain disease that actually is resistant to sterilization in the OR. And all I can think is I never ever want to have surgery again because it's such a huge risk. I'm a mental health nurse, so anything really medical makes me a little queasy anyway. This one just scared me. But great detail because I had a real good visualization. So much great detail for y'all's work. So I really appreciate the efforts that you put into this assignment. Next week, you've got probably one of your more difficult assignments. It is your voiceover PowerPoint. This is going to be the final piece of your quality project. Want to remind you that this takes a little bit of time. I will highly encourage you not to wait until Sunday at about 10 o'clock to try to load this into YouTube. You want to do your PowerPoints takes some time to get those organized, get the voiceover component correct, save the file. It is not uncommon to have the exporting of that PowerPoint and converting it into a file for uploading into YouTube to take quite a bit of time. It can take, 30, 40 minutes. I've had a few students say it can take almost an hour. The reason that you were asked to make this 10 to 12 minutes is to compress that file size so that when you get ready to put it into YouTube, it is not a disaster. I had a student quite distressed a couple of sessions ago. It took her project almost 3 hours to load. I opened it and it was almost 40 minutes of voiceover PowerPoints, which is why YouTube was so slow. Fabulous project, but it really does choke up the system. Be thoughtful, be concise, be professional. Ask yourself when you're done, could I hand this voiceover PowerPoint presentation to my team, to my colleagues, to my manager, and it reflect a thoughtful synthesis of evidence-based practice to accurately address a current quality issue in my hospital setting? Your idea in this voiceover PowerPoint is supposed to be a novel solution that is not currently in practice, that is supported by your literature. So, while you do all of that, I hope that at some point you can put everything in a parking lot, that you can stop and enjoy family and friends and people that really like you for Thanksgiving. I hope good food is involved, good company's involved, maybe a few good football games. Know that each year at Thanksgiving, my family, before we have Thanksgiving our Thanksgiving meal, we go around the table and get sappy and talk about all the things we're grateful for. Know that this year that you will be included in my list of things I'm thankful for. It is my pleasure to work with you. If you have questions or concerns, touch base. Let me know what your needs are. Otherwise, I'll look forward to seeing your work for week 5. Happy Thanksgiving, y'all. Take care.